This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. And welcome to an Andor video that just kept getting bigger and bigger as I started thinking on it. The original concept for this was just to look at Luthen's and Mon's speech, and I was like, well, I kind of need to mention Marva's when I started recording, and then after I was about to pull it up and was about to start recording again, then I was like, oh wait, Kino's makes a lot of sense. So I went to get that, and I was like, oh, and then there's also Nemik's. So this went from talking about two of the speeches to now five, but that just shows how great this is. Well, these all go and cover very similar topics. They all are unique and incredible in their own right. And honestly, I'm gonna just start going through these and just talking about them. I am going to put links to each of these in the in the comments because I think you can only link like 4 videos and talk to you about 5 different speeches. And I'll put one for I'm trying to put one for everything besides most likely I'm gonna say of all them probably Nemix, and I'll have that just pinned in a comment if it's only 4. But still they're all just really incredible speeches, monologues, and just things to tell of why their rebels are fighting. And the reason I'm linking them and not reading through them is 2 reasons. One, it's gonna take a while to read through all 5 of these. And 2, there's just no way I could do better than all the actors to go and portray these just incredible performances. I don't want to take anything away from them by me just not managing to be as good as them. So we're gonna go into it and looking at them. I was thinking of doing this in different ways. The way I set it up for the thumbnail is to kind of have a fun continuation of the conversation, but for all of them, I'm going to go with these in order of when we hear them, and I'm talking in their entirety. So, starting off, we're going to be going and taking a look at Kino's speech of One Way Out, followed by Luthen's speech of What Do I Sacrifice. Then we'll be going into Nemix because I'm pretty sure we hear everything at the end of season 1. There might be a little more added on at the end of season 2, but I think it's the exact same audio file. But the one I pulled up was one from season 2, right before Partagas kills himself. And going through the next ones, it will then be followed by Marva's speech, and finally Mon Mothma's speech. So we'll be going through these all and just taking a look at how these tie into the themes of Andor about why people are fighting back and why the Empire is just so truly evil. So I'll go through them by each of these and just remember go watch this speech before because those scenes are just absolutely incredible. So let's go straight into it. And here we have Kino's speech. It is absolutely incredible just how intense this is. This is showing why people would stand up against the Empire, them realizing that they not only outnumber them, but also could overpower them, that they need to strike the Empire when they are weak and be able to take advantage of any opportunity they get. And as Kino says, And to directly quote him here, he's talking about how they just really need to go and help everyone. He says, you see someone who's confused, someone who is lost, you get them moving and keep them moving until you put this place behind us. And yes, in the context of this specific scene, he's talking about escaping from prison, but this could ultimately just go and work with the rebellion as a whole because that's really what they have to do. They need to go and show people you can fight back against the Empire, and this is the only way to freedom. And to be able to do that, it's just truly incredible. I think that it works really well as just something to have, say as a general thing to talk about how the rebellion operates, them going and inspiring others to go and strike back against the Empire and showing that there is only one way out, and that one way out is for them to fight back, for them to not put their heads down and just try and live things out to be able to make it to freedom because there is no freedom under the Empire. They will be going and oppressing them for the rest of their lives until it's taken down, and if no one works to take it down, then it will never be taken down. Just with this goes into just so much so the series just helps tell why people fight and what they will be doing to go up against the Imperials. It is just honestly incredible, and I just love the scene. And with this, I'm only talking about just the words. I'm not talking about how the scene is done, just incredible things like that, or the scene right after the one I put on there where you see all the guards are scared of them. I'm just talking about the incredible writing for these and just why it just goes and shows what Andor is about and why it is incredible. Now, moving on to Marva's speech. This is another one in a similar way to Kino, where it's talking about just kind of waking up to you can't just do nothing. Marva's talking about how they went and they did nothing. They just let the Empire go do whatever they want, and as long as they left, they didn't care what they were doing. And she comes to a realization that this is a problem because the Empire is just gonna eventually find a reason to go and take over, and they're not gonna leave at one point, and that's gonna become their problem. And ultimately, that is why they need to fight. They can't have a government going and oppressing them. They need to do it. And she even points out the hypocrisy that she's saying this after she's dead, that she is essentially safe from any type of reprisal the Empire could do against her specifically, and that this is ultimately it could be too late for them to fight back, but they should still try. Just to go back to quoting Kino, they'd rather, well, Kino's quoting Cassian, but I'd rather go down fighting them, giving them what they want. And it is, it is just absolutely amazing as she says this, and really thinking on it. Cassian telling that to Kino, and then Kino passing it along. It makes a lot of sense because that's just something that Marva would say, and this speech proves it, that ultimately, the one thing that Cassian says that kind of inspires Kino to stand up, and Kino uses to use everyone else to stand up is I'd rather go down fighting than just doing nothing. It's just absolutely incredible, and just with this speech, everything is really great. It is showing her humanity and her connection to her people, and realizing that this is hard, but it also goes into the fact that the empire itself is a disease and that it's something that is truly unnaturally wrong. And this is this is just it's just really great. It goes and ties into two more of these speeches as we'll be talking about mm, briefly how Nemik is talking about how the Empire's control is unnatural, and Mon Mothma says that without truth, it's just the monster who screams the loudest. And this just ties in so well with those. It is a, it's just truly amazing to see because besides for all of these, this is might be the only ones I was truly prepared. Nemix is, it seems that Nemix is more of like him working at that overtime and not even being his final version of what he wants to say, but it really is all we have since he died. And Mon Mothma's was the most prepared of all of these in terms of, actual in universe stuff. Like, obviously, these were all written in advance, but Luthen's is the most kind of just an in the moment thing that he gives off. Talk about everything he's given up. Going to Kino's, that's the exact same thing. And as I said, Nemix, it's more of him just putting his ideas together and him not even ultimately being finished with it, but that's what comes out. But this was probably a lot of thinking on Marva while we don't see her doing all the preparations like Mon did with her practicing her speech. This is probably something she thought through and made sure she worded perfectly, and it's just truly amazing how she did this. And yeah, we all know they changed Fight the Empire from, let's just say, F the Empire, and just her just telling people to they need to rise up, they need to fight, and her saying that if she could change things, that she would go in fighting even harder. It is it's just truly incredible, and it just helps again show just why the people in the rebellion are fighting and what they are fighting for, and just why the Empire is just truly evil and is something that has to be destroyed. Now moving into Nemik's manifesto, and I did mention I was going to put the one to the season 2, but the one I found was actually just a edit that was made because I was just watching each of these clips before I went and talked about them. But going into his, uh, it is it is just a truly amazing speech for him talking about just why the Empire is just not going to be able to win. The fact that tyranny is just requires constant effort for them, and it's not as nothing natural like freedom. And the true fact that freedom is something that is just deserved to everyone, and it is just something that really needs to be given to everyone. Is it's really incredible. He talks about just how they need to go and fight back, and everyone is important, but ultimately there will be a single moment that goes and will lead to the Empire's downfall. And just speaking of that single moment, he is completely correct, even though he doesn't know what it is because he'll never live to see the day the Empire falls. It all depends on what you think that moment is. Personally, the moment that the Empire truly falls to me is the moment Vader decides to go and to turn on Palpatine and save his son, because ultimately the Empire would still been held together, at least in some portion, if Palpatine was still alive. But as I mentioned in the video from just a few days ago, the Empire is always falling apart, and Nemik's Manifesto goes and it proves that. It proves that the Empire is going to fall, and that I probably should have brought that up in that video, but it's already recorded and uploaded at this point. I don't feel like changing that. But this is sort of an extension off of that, where everything that the Empire does is unnatural, and they're just willing to turn on each other to make sure that this tyranny can be continue to be enforced, even though if they did the right thing. And just looking at really everything, the Empire is just and its fall is inevitable because of the facts he talks about here, and he's mentioning just how every single act that the rebels do is going to be able to push their cause forward until it eventually does reach that breaking point. And yeah, there's other things you could mention as a breaking point. I'd say the Death of Palpatine is the final breaking point, but the first one is the Battle of Scarif, and then it is the Battle of Yavin, and then well, in an opposite way, the near breaking point for the rebellion is the Battle of Hoth, but we're talking about the attacks on the Empire, and he's just telling people just to try, and well, it's really all they could do because yes, as Yoda says, do or do not. There is no try, but it's not a guarantee they're going to be able to take down the Empire. So yeah, try is the best word, even though yeah, it is contradictory to what Yoda said. That's just more of a funny thing to think of, but still, it really is amazing, and I just love that we rehear this again because of just how important it is at the end of season two, where Partagas is listening to this right before he ends his own life, and that's not to be a act of rebellion to him. It is so he doesn't go in have to face the consequences of him majorly screwing up. So really, it is it's just another incredible speech. But now we've talked about the smaller three. Now it's time to take a look at the two masterpieces. The reason I wanted to make this video initially, and it sort of expanded because I just realized that these three also went into those themes of people. And well, the last thing I would say about Nemix is that it's about really about how the little guy stands up and does something, and Andor really is all about the little guy and his impact on the galaxy, and how the little guy is able to go and make some serious changes. It just doesn't need to be the great legendary heroes like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Leia Organa. There is just the small people. I mean, you can even say Cassian is a great hero, but and Mon Mothma, but people like Luthen, people like Clea, people like Bix and Will, and the people of Gore, Kino Loy, and all these other people who go and they gave it all to fight back against the Empire, and especially Lonnie. Lonnie is someone that history in Star Wars will probably never remember. They won't even know that he's the person who initially told them of the Death Star and is the reason that Cassian was already on its trail when he got his contact from Saw's people. And Lonnie is this complete unsung hero who ultimately lost his life just to make sure this information was kept quiet for just long enough to be able to be passed on to the rebellion as a whole and make sure that this super weapon could be discovered and hopefully be destroyed. Just absolutely incredible, but now it's time to move into just the two moments I wanted to talk about the most. And it's been about 20 minutes, and I've been wanting to talk about these for the last 20 minutes because easily these are the best two scenes of just written dialogue in all of Andor and probably all of Star Wars because of just how incredible it is. But let's move into those now. And I'm going to talk about Mon's speech first. I did say Luthen's was supposed to be like the one before this one, but I realized that just the topics of the speeches of Mon and Marva and of Nemik all tied together so well. I should talk about them together. And also, I mean, I said, as I said, the entire reason of this was Mon and Luthen's, and I sort of just started talking about Nemix and realized after I was like, oh yeah, I said I was supposed to do Luthans before, but I'd rather just save that to the end because those are the two I truly want to talk about. And well, Mons is a truly incredible speech, and I think is the best one of all these. And I think that Luthans is what truly encompasses everything for this series and encompasses really the meaning of all these speeches combined. So let's go take a look at Mons. And while the first part is an incredible piece of world building, I'm not going to be looking at the first part of Mon Mothma's speech because that's more just getting people into ease so they will listen to what she's saying. She's putting in a lot of, not exactly fluff, but stuff to just give her credibility to say, I know what I'm talking about when I go and I denounce Palpatine. So I'm going to be focusing on the back half, which is talking about the death of truth and how that goes and leads to the monster who screams the loudest being able to be the only one heard. And it's just a genuinely great response to an absolute atrocity. I've already rewatched Andor and it's completely once, and I'm doing my second rewatch already with someone else, and that one has to be an episode by episode because I really only have enough time with that person to do it for about an hour a day, and that's usually only like 2 or 3 times a week. But with this, I rewatched the Gorman Massacre last night from when I was recording this, and in response that Mon Mothma has to the Gorman Massacre, I mean it's great, and it feels like even that's too small because of just how absolutely horrific everything that happened on Gorman was. Just the massacre itself was just one of the darkest things you've seen in Star Wars, and well, we've seen some pretty dark things in Star Wars. I mean, maybe not be the darkest thing. I'd say it's still probably the implication that Anakin went and slaughtered children, but uh, in terms of what we've actually seen, since they did have to cut away for that to not boost Revenge of the Sith to being rated R. That of things we've like literally seen, this is probably the darkest thing, and Mon Mothma has to go and respond to this absolute atrocity. Speaking of how truth is dead, and the Empire is being able to do whatever they want. They could say whatever they want and justify any atrocity they want just because they say so. She's saying that the Empire is just filled with monsters, and of all of them, whatever they say goes and is what the truth is, not what is actually true. And of all of those monsters, the greatest one of them is the Emperor himself, who whatever he says, no matter what any of the other monsters of the Empire says, whatever he says goes, and it is just it is just truly, truly insane. I think that it is just absolutely expertly done. It is an incredible speech, and even though I'm not talking about the scenes in between, there's all those little acts of rebellion that are happening as she's doing this, like the people who locked the doors, and and Cassie going to extract her, and really her own assistant saying, "Yeah, she told me not to come, but I'm still coming to help you anyway." It is just it is just truly truly amazing, and yeah, you can go and take a look into this even deeper and talk about how this talks about the modern world and the death of truth in that. I will not be doing that. I'm talking about its connections to the Andor series and everything that happened in that. And yeah, as we see throughout this, truth is well, what the truth is dying. It is just getting far more and more corrupted. At the beginning of the season, it is or season of a series. It is um them going and wanting to cover up the death of two corrupt officers just to make things look better, to go and boost the numbers. And I'm sure many of us have worked at a job where they're going and saying, oh, yeah, we need to boost the numbers and make it look good, even if we're doing shady things to do that. And it is just shown more and more as the entire prison resentencing thing. Yeah, it's a response to Aldani, but it's also just to boost the numbers of the Imperials, have people incarcerated, and to have more people in forced labor camps to work on stuff like the Death Star. And then we continue throughout this. We see the entire smear campaign they're making against the gore and how they're using that to, again, justify doing greater and greater atrocities against the gore, and how they're able to eventually go and justify their, as Mothma says, unprovoked genocide against them because they changed what the truth is, and there is no one to be able to step back against that and say, no, no, this is the truth. Only the Empire is able to say that, and that itself just makes them monsters. And then the fact that they're going and committing these horrible, horrible atrocities makes things just so much more worse. And it is just truly, truly just devastating to realize this is what the galaxy is like. But this is the reason so many people are starting to stand up. That Mon Moth was able to inspire hope into people that there could be a way to defeat the Empire, because she directly denounces the Emperor and she manages to get away. I'm sure the Empire tried to do some kind of campaign to make it look different, but the people who believe in the cause know what's going on, and they know that Mon Mothma is there for them, especially after she makes that one speech in Rebels and the Ghost. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about her speech in the Senate. Absolutely amazing, and it's time to move into the final one. The culmination of all these speeches and to what everything is truly about in Andor. And looking at the absolute masterpiece of what Luthen says, he gives up everything for the rebellion, and that's what so many people have to do, whether looking at people who literally gave their lives, like Luthen, like Cassian, like basically everyone who went to Eldani besides Vel, and you look at how they put their lives on the line and they gave it up so they could cause a sunrise that, well, that they will never be able to see, but they were able to do it for for the future generations, for the people they were around, and to make sure that this group like the Empire will never be able to go and be there forever. And knowing that most of them are, they're never gonna be able to forgiven, they're just gonna be forgotten. That just goes in with what I'm saying, goes every small act counts, but also every small act is not gonna be remembered. Even a major act like Lonnie's, as I said, there's probably no one who remembers who Lonnie is. Yeah, Clea is still alive, and there probably is some note of him somewhere, but Lonnie's gonna be forgotten about because there's all these other bigger people. There's gonna be people, and the same goes for Luthen. They're gonna remember the people of Rogue One because they went and, in a very public and giant dramatic fashion, they gave their lives to get the Death Star plans. People like Luke, Han, and Leia, they're gonna be remembered because they were the faces of the rebellion. Mon Mothma, she's remembered because she's the head of the rebellion, and those are really the only people that'll be remembered. Everyone else, they're going to be forgotten, or they're just going to be small footnotes in history, and no one in the galaxy will truly know just how impactful these people were even if most of them are still alive at this point. Because as I said, we know that Clea knows of Lonnie and everything he contributed, but she herself is probably going to be forgotten. The people is that they're going to remember is the people who went and did the big public sacrifices or managed to go and pull off the major public victories. And that's something truly that Luthen talks about, and it is both sad for him and it's something he knows that has to be done, that there has to be these unsung heroes who go and push for the Empire to be destroyed, and it is just it's just truly, truly amazing. Taking a look at really everything he's also saying, how it ties into Mon's speech is really realizing that he needs to do something, and he's putting in everything to make sure that those monsters don't manage to scream the loudest, but also knowing what their tactics are, and he knows they're monsters, but he has to use the tactics of monsters to be able to take down the monsters, and that's really how it ties into Mons. He knows about these facts that truth is dying and these tactics are horrific, but he also knows this is the only way for them to be able to win. They have to go and use these horrific tactics to be able to go and use against the Empire just to ensure that they're going to win this conflict and be able to have freedom, and it also leads to him knowing that he has to die for this because he's never going to be welcomed in society after all the atrocities he helped commit, and that's just fully so he could go and make sure that this freedom happened. Now looking at the one for Kino. Kino's also sacrificing everything in that moment. Kino knows he can't swim, and there's no way out for him specifically besides death. And that's exactly what Luthen's realizing here. He's well, not really realizing here. It's something he knows, but he's letting Lonnie realize that. Oh yeah, I know I'm not making it out of this fight. I know I'm eventually going to be taken down and killed. And before Luthen even knows that his cover's been blown, he's mentioning to Cassian on Coruscant, "I can't go to Yavin. I need to be here. I know what I'm doing, and I know that I have to go out in a blaze of glory to make sure that the rebellion is ultimately able to win." And that's what he does. He gives his life feeding into Dedra's ego and probably a little bit of his own just to say there's no way you could win. As he stabs himself, he he realizes he's gained victory, and even though it doesn't fully kill him, and Clea has to kill him because Dedra is keeping Luthen alive, it is still a it's still a great sacrifice, just like Kino's done, and like the other two, he's realizing that he can't just sit down and do nothing. He has to do something. He has to step up and he has to fight back against the Empire, and he has to give everything to do it. Everyone in the show gives everything, and I was mentioning earlier the people who gave their lives, but both Mon and Vel, they had very comfortable lives. They easily could have just sat back, lived a nice, privileged life, and watched as all the people around them suffered absolute atrocities. They just couldn't do that. They gave up that comfortable life. They gave up safety and security in terms of them being alive to be able to fight back against the Empire and basically having every day of their lives be in danger. Luthen and Clea both gave up really everything good about them to go and try and destroy the Empire, and Luthen was giving more and more to make sure that Clea wasn't able to give as much as him and wasn't able to fall as far as him, to try and make sure that she could actually live to see this sunrise he is fighting for. And while that did work, Clay is still very much tainted by it and really sees no point in anything after Luthen isn't there to make those hard moves for her, and he's doing it so she doesn't fall further. And when she's forced to do something on her own of killing Luthen, that nearly destroys her. But thankfully, she is able to recover, and they're able to go and fight back, and ultimately able to defeat the Empire. But yeah, these speeches are truly amazing pieces of cinema and really, really masterfully well done. And yeah, honestly, just truly, truly great. Loved looking at all of them, loved re listening to them because of just how amazing the writing on Andor is. And I want to know what you think. Please leave me in the comments. And I'll see you next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.